I'm headed to the airport on line 14 for the first time, which is really cool, but on my way to the United States, I'm going to make a trip. And I have a little bit of an ethical question. Actually, I have a lot of questions, concerns, and some curiosities, among which are like, how is crossing the border going to go? What is the vibe actually like in the States right now? And will I be able to find all of the snacks and books that I would like to get while I'm there? And I realize that's a whole bundle from anxiety-inducing all the way to fun. But it leaves me asking the question, should I even? I mean, really? But one really cool thing that I'm gonna get to do on this trip is I'm gonna be able to make a little bit of a delivery. A hand delivery. If you were following along, you might have noticed that I got to 100,000 subscribers recently, which is really exciting. This is mostly holding together, but one of the really exciting elements of it is that I made 3D printed versions of my silver play button for 10 of my subscribers that have been with me since 2016. Not just subscribers, but patrons of mine. One of the best parts of this trip is gonna be actually getting to hand deliver it to a few of them, not everybody. I'm bringing back everything that's gonna be shipped to patrons of mine in America, because it just seems easier right now to bring it with me and ship it from that side of the world. But that's the goal for this trip, is to see a few of the OGs all the way back in Washington State and hand them to them in person. Wish me luck. Hopefully they don't like confiscate them or something. Copyright infringement? I don't know. Like I said, I went to a little bit of a travel thing put on by Dave and Dominique, if you're familiar, at the Pullman Hotel, which was fun. He had this like worksheet that he had us do. And I always appreciate a little bit of time reflecting, like spending time on the destination being me. But thinking through trips I've been on, where do I like spending time? What it is that I enjoy. It's always good to sit and think this stuff through. But honestly, going into it, I already felt like I don't really need to travel that much anymore. Like I didn't know for sure why I was. I mean, I went because he invited me to come, but I wasn't really sure what I was doing at a travel event. And as I sat down and thought through the things that I really want, the writing that I want to do, the community I want to build, the friendships, all the things that are the most important to me right now, I also realized like, I don't really need to travel for this. And if nothing else, I'm actually really grateful that I sat down and thought this through, because I've been wrestling with my lack of desire to travel for a while now. He says, while in an airplane toilet, but I don't think that I'm the only one. Am I the only one? Oh, is this mine? Perfect timing. It's really easy to criticize mass tourism as we go, right? Like I think especially now with people going on strike and tourists breaking chairs in museums and all this stuff. And then you look at the Instagram side of things and people always just posting the exact same photos, going to the same places to make it look like no one's around, when in reality there's a line of people behind them, and then eating food that they could have eaten at home if they would have just stayed home, whether that's the coffee or the beer, whatever it is they're doing. Like, why do we travel anymore? I think that's a real question that's been at the root of like, it's been bothering me a lot lately. I think maybe it's important to acknowledge that not all travel is the same. At its root for me, the value of travel came in its challenge, like in pushing me outside of my comfort zones and making me see places, customs, eat food, be really pushed very far out of my comfort zone and grow as a result. I found myself so far out of my comfort zone that I was forced to face things that I couldn't simply dismiss, which is really easy to do when you're within your comfort zone or you haven't left what you're familiar with. For me, travel was never travel for its own sake. Actually, in so many ways, it was an escape. I actually did not recognize that as a kid, and not for a while into adulthood either. But for me, travel was both a way of getting away from things that I needed to get away from, and also coming back to myself. For me, by the time I got to the point where I was traveling just for travel's sake, it quickly became really hollow. Of course, I'm not just traveling to deliver these play buttons to my patrons, although that would be a lot of fun. I'm actually here for family, which is why I'm in California, and I'm turning 40. So I wanted to do a little bit of a road trip, see some family, show some French friends around my corner of the world. Unfortunately, one of those friends couldn't make it in the end, but one of them can. You'll know him. He's annoying. You'll recognize him really fast when you see him. Did I say annoying? I meant adorable. Also, there really is something to be said for American grocery stores and craft beer aisles, at least on the West Coast. This is kind of what I grew up with. Did I grow up with this? I didn't drink beer until I was in like my mid-20s, so I don't know. But again, I'm not traveling for this.
Have you ever heard of choice paralysis? Really?
And now we're in a coffee shop that opens at 4:30 in the morning, which is great for jet lag and definitely something we do not have in France, especially. I wish we did. But we should probably talk about the elephant in the room at this point in the video, which is that yes, I do have a sty, and it's sticking around longer than I was hoping for. It's the first time I've ever had one in my life. Oh, the other elephant in the room. Yes, I do also sell a travel guide to Paris. I think that's why it's actually really important to ask these questions. Like, if I have ethical concerns about the industry that I find myself in, which, not just travel, content creation as well. I have a lot of very deep concerns about this. Hi. We need to be having these conversations, ultimately, is what I'm trying to say. And that's what I'm trying to do, I guess. I think the really tricky thing about this is that I don't want to say that travel is bad or wrong. I liken it to when you go shopping. There are a couple of streets in Paris that are death traps on your bike because of shoppers. Rue de Rivoli is one of those areas. If you live in Paris, you know it all too well, I'm sure. People just go and they completely just blank out. I don't know what it is. You go to a shopping mall, you go to a shopping district, and your brain is still off. You're just buying stuff. People step into the street without looking both ways, and it drives me insane. It's not where I want to ride my bike. It feels really dangerous, and I try to avoid those areas simply because I know it's going to be crowded, and people are just going to be... And in the same way, if you can travel, if you're going to a place, you're just going, you're following the crowd, your brain is still turned off, and you're checked out. Does that negate the value of travel? I realize that I sell a travel guide, like I said, and these are really important questions for me to wrestle with personally because I'm a part of the travel industry, whether or not I want to be. It wasn't my intention. The funny thing is that I don't use the kind of product that I sell when it comes to traveling. When I travel, I like to go to a place and all I look up is a coffee shop that's highly rated, and I find a place to stay near there, and that's just my starting point. This seems to be in a walkable area. From what I can tell, there's some good coffee to start my day, and from there I can explore and figure it out. That's how I go. And the guide that I sell to Paris was developed from just doing that in Paris, exploring, finding things, and then people asking me, oh, where was that? What were you eating? Where did you get that coffee? That kind of stuff. And I said, you know what? I can package this up, sell it to you. If you'd like to know, that's how you can do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think trying to maximize the time that we have in places, especially when we're traveling halfway around the world, we want to make sure we have good food, we have a good experience, we find good tour guides, we find all the best stuff. I get that. But at the same time, if in doing that, we can just turn our brains off and follow, does that negate all of the benefit that comes from being challenged? Does that negate all the value of travel in the long run? I don't know. So there's a little bit of a premise. What is the value then that travel brings? I think that's actually a really big question that is only answered personally. For me, so much of the value of travel has been the challenge of it. Not just the difficulty in finding your way, speaking a new language, trying new foods, but also to my preconceived ideas of how the world worked. I don't talk about this very often. I mean, publicly at least. Privately I do with my friends, because as you may know, I have a lot of LGBTQ friends, especially in Paris. But when I first started traveling, I was a little bit of a homophobe. I grew up very Christian, and I used to say things like, love the sin and not the sinner, which is not okay. And I know that now. But if it hadn't been for my traveling, meeting people who walked different walks of life, who lived in different ways, and who were lovely, amazing human beings across cultures, across preferences, sexual orientations, across so many different spectrums, then I wouldn't have had the opportunity to change the way that I saw the world. But I'm not sure that that really happens when you're just traveling for like a hot chocolate and a croissant, you know? As an aside, I have the YouTube play buttons to send to my patrons. I'm headed to mail the ones that I'm not gonna get to hand deliver on this trip. Gonna get those in the mail right now, just in case you forgot about that. And a postcard for Emily. She's watching Cooper, and she's amazing. She makes my life better. She's my assistant, in case you didn't know that. We're getting a lot of like random asides in here. Back to travel. What is it that actually makes it valuable?
It's the letter carrier technician, so I come all the way to anywhere, all up there.
Well, that was easy. If you ever need to mail anything and you're in Hillcrest mail station, these guys were great. That was super easy. All right, I only have 3 left to hand off in person. But I guess that brings us back to that reflective point where I don't have the answer for anybody else, but I have the answer for me, which is, why do I travel? Is it something that I still want to do? And how do I want to go about doing it? So let's try to wrap that up, and then we can hand these off in person in Spokane, Washington. All right, so first, why? I think for me, the most important thing is to actually travel with friends or with family. The reason I'm in San Diego is for family. The reason I'm going to LA right now is for friends. And the same, going up to Washington to see some friends and family to celebrate my 40th. The other side would be for work, which gets a little dicey because for work, I can kind of justify traveling anywhere. It's what I was doing back before COVID in particular. I was taking a train somewhere else in France, or I was flying somewhere else in Europe like a few times a month to make content, but that started becoming travel for its own sake. I wasn't really going to do or accomplish anything so much as see a new place and check it off the list. And for me, that got really lonely and really, it felt really pointless pretty quickly. So I don't really want to do that anymore. But on the flip side, I do have a conference coming up, and if there were opportunities for work where I'm getting paid to speak, where I'm getting paid to make something specific, like a tourism board flies me in kind of a thing, potential foreshadowing there, then I'm open to doing something like that because I would love to see a new place with friends, as long as there are people involved, and work intermingled with that is for me a really good reason to travel. Outside of that, just going for its own sake, even though I do really like exploring, feels fairly hollow.
Swanson, hello.
Hey. Good to see you.
USA. USA. America's number one. America's number one, man.
You? Yeah. And then for,
This is definitely less shit than the outside.
better than nothing.
Fang.
Oh yeah. Actually.
Transition.
Oh yeah. You, just me? Okay.
Yeah.
Among the missions that I had for this trip, the top snack that I wanted to get and the most likely to be able to make the trip back is Cougar Gold. Cougar Gold is a cheese that's made in my hometown. The town I grew up in, Pullman, Washington, is an agricultural school that has its own dairy farm and creamery, and they make, I think, the best cheddar in the world. This is some sharp, mature, delicious cheddar. Yes, it comes in a can, but yes, anytime you ask me, I will happily bring this to a cheese party with a bunch of French friends. And so far, in those attempts, bringings about, they've all liked it quite a lot. And I'm gonna bring it back for my birthday party, which is happening in a week. Paul hasn't had this before. Paul's also having a great time wandering around with my dad and I, seeing the small but delightful hometown, the university, the hospital I was born in, briefly. And we're gonna go get ourselves a cyclone at Cougar Country because Paul's been dying for an American diner experience. And it's not the picturesque version that you might be imagining, but it is classic. Oh, there you go.
So this is where you lived for like 18 years?
Yeah, well, for 15.
15, okay.
And then they sold...
Winner, chicken dinner. Wow. This is fun.
We're doing our best to Americanize Paul as much as we can in this brief span of time.
I don't wear baseball caps, but I've got one on. I've never eaten in a diner before, and here I am.
In the middle of nowhere, America, as you put it. To wrap all this up, before we go give these last play buttons to my patrons tonight, some of the OGs from 2016, is like, for me, this is what travel needs to be about, is like sharing where you're from, new experiences with people you love, or like I feel like what's the point right now to some degree? Moving somewhere, being challenged, growing, those are all great things. But for me personally right now in my life where I'm at, I've kind of done that. And now I'm in a place where like I have so much work to do and so much to do at home to build in Paris that if I'm going to be traveling, I feel like it has to have something like this, sharing an experience with people I love or very specifically work oriented. More or less what I've already said, but here we are having ice cream and French fries, so you gotta capture it one last time. Anyways, let's go deliver these play buttons. That just looks like criminal.
What does?
The whole process. YouTube play buttons.
for the 10 patrons that have been with me since 2016.
Oh my goodness.
That is so awesome.
For you.
That's amazing.
And I made little stands.
Thank you very much. Oh, I like it.
It isn't, they're not with
Look, you all have to look this way, though. Both!